For the past year and a half, plenty of players have been arguing with me about Dark Souls PvP and whether it can be competitive. Be it here in the comment section or on social media, it's always the same bunch of weak arguments tossed left and right. Or even no arguments at all, just pure Dark Souls PvP isn't competitive and it's joke kind of bullshit. So I've been planning to do this discussion kind of thing for a long time, and I've been thinking about the format for it, whether it's gonna be a nice fit for a podcast, maybe a live discussion, but I've decided to actually do it like this. Just a plain discussion video. So today we try to peacefully discuss whether Dark Souls PvP can be competitive, or in other words, we're gonna try to find out what exactly makes the video game competitive. Before we begin the discussion on all the jazz, let's sort out the terminology. What exactly does competitive mean? Well, it means that the subject is based on competition. So what does competition mean then? Well, it's a contest between rivals. So unless you smoke some different kind of a dictionary, anything can be competitive as long as there are two parties interested in measuring their whatever they like to measure against each other. And it is no secret that at its core you can compete in anything. You can challenge your friend to eat a cake and make it competitive cake consumption festival. You can play rock paper scissors competitively. And well, you can duel your neighbor in Dark Souls competitively. As long as you have 2 or even more, 3, 4, I don't really know, whatever floats your boat. As long as you are going against each other, you're competing. So far, so good. Dark Souls PvP is clearly cut for competitive play. Now, let's go in detail. Dark Souls is a video game, and there are some specifics related to that. Let's take a look at some of the most famous and successful competitive video games. Be it Counter-Strike, Quake, or even Dota and League of Legends. All of those games have something in common, something that Dark Souls lacks. Obviously, all those games are more or less multiplayer based, with 99% of the content being set around multiplayer element. And despite what everyone says that FromSoft doesn't care about PvP, plenty of post-release changes have been targeted at multiplayer elements, so I'm not really buying it. I think From cares about PvP a lot more than people give him credit for. So yeah, as far as multiplayer focus goes, Dark Souls can get a pass here. The actual difference between those video games is sort of the reason why all those 4 games have been living under the title of an esport for all those years. It's the developer support. Just fixing the glitches and working on balance is not enough to raise a decent competitive title. If you want to go esport these days, you have to support your game outside of the machine code, which involves official tournaments, proper feedback loop, and all that fancy stuff. This is where Dark Souls loses all its points in the race to become competitive video game. Up till this day, the only thing that we have gotten from Miyazaki crew was that awkward tournament almost a year ago, so the lack of official support kinda hurts the competitive scene, and by hurts I mean it doesn't let it grow properly. This is a very valid argument and I can't go against it. As far as developer support goes, it's a bust. So does that mean that Dark Souls can't be competitive? Well, actually no, because nobody really gives a damn. The issue here is that nobody can tell you what to do and how to play the game. Not even Miyazaki can tell you to not be competitive, to not be passionate about duels with your friends. Not even Miyazaki can stop the community from trying to make the game suited for competitive play. So as long as there are people that have fun by competing in the environment that the game provides, it will be competitive. Not as popular, not officially an esport title, but competitive? Sure. Now let's play words again. Since all you really need to call something competitive is just a bunch of guys having fun with each other, there has to be a more accurate way to test if the game is potentially an esport ready title. So I'll raise the question, is Dark Souls suited for competitive play? Well, the answer is both yes and no. Despite what I've said that From actually did adjust a ton of PvP related mechanics since the release of Dark Souls 3, it is just not enough. Every single game that I've mentioned earlier as an esport title has an ongoing support with developers working day and night to make it more balanced. This is not the case with Dark Souls, because From does not officially support the competitive scene. Since they don't really care about it, they have no obligation to work on it, so it's never really been their focus. But wait, there's more. Is there really a way for FromSoft to support the competitive scene when it comes to the game and its core concept? Well, actually no, because the game is designed to miss one of the key features that again every competitive multiplayer game has, the LAN mode. This is easily the biggest argument against Dark Souls becoming an esport or anything serious. Every good competitive title has been designed with the LAN mode in mind, so the online functionality is just an added bonus. This is not the case with Dark Souls, since its whole PvP experience exists only in the realm of online world, so even if From wanted to support the scene, chances are they'd have no way to do so because of how the game is designed. However, does it really matter? Just because the game is not super competitive doesn't mean it's not a good platform for competition. So again, as long as you have fun tryharding the shit out of every duel, tapping R1s with Deathstalk, and hiding behind the Black Knight shield on retreat, you can do whatever you really want and it will be suited for competition. Now, time for subjectives. Is Dark Souls 3 PvP fun? No, scratch that question. Is competitive Dark Souls 3 PvP fun? Well, the answer is, I don't really have an answer for you, because it is very, very subjective. Does the developer push the game as competitive title? No. It's not the case with Dark Souls. Does the developer support it? Not really. But does it really matter? As long as you have fun, nothing can stop you from enjoying the competitive element of anything, including Dark Souls PvP. As a matter of fact, unless you want to fight a dictionary, Dark Souls PvP can be competitive, despite the lack of proper developer support, good balance and whatnot. As long as there is a community around it, it lives. And this is the reason why I have always been so upset with people shaming the word competitive in the context of Dark Souls PvP. Because nobody has ever even implied that Dark Souls is an esport ready title. But by shaming some of the good players that have mastered whatever the game gave them, people did nothing but hurt the scene. The actual problem here is that people use the fact that From don't officially support the competitive scene as an excuse to do basically fuck all in PvP, which naturally translates into shaming everyone who has different views on the subject. Imagine CSGO matchmaking without an actual active competitive scene. People would be shamed for buying good weapons and whatnot, but as long as there is an official scene with official tournaments, prize pools, teams, those people that would normally shame everybody have nothing else to do other than just accept the fact that the competition is there. So there you have it, my take on what makes the game competitive and whether Dark Souls PvP can be considered competitive. Now it's time for you to leave a comment and let me know how cancer and tryhard is the footage you're seeing right now and what's your take on this whole situation. Thank you for watching and I'll see you next time.